You don't know me.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.
Ladies, it's the only boy that I think kissed all of us on the show. Honestly.
That's true.
I can't think of anyone else that had that pleasure.
I think you're right.
What a gentleman. Here he is. We're talking about you, James.
What's going on, guys? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. You look great.
We were just making the point that you're the only boy in the history of the show that kissed all three of us.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Because Lucas never kissed Haley.
Is there like empirical evidence to back this up? We have a tally going? Like,
Yeah. Listen, we've got a fan army.
We've watched so many episodes.
that's where it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Kudos to y'all as well for getting this far into the whole show and everything. Like I was watching the episode last night, and it's not lost on me how many episodes it takes just to get here.
Yeah.
Let alone how many you
get to that
have
point.
ahead of you.
Well, wait, how many times have you seen episodes since you wrapped? I mean, I can't imagine you sat there and watched SoapNet,
I did.
That's your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, reruns.
Just James at home with a mac and cheese, watching
Yeah.
old episodes of One Tree Hill.
Damn it, you got me.
Yeah.
No, I think the last time I watched a full episode was probably around the time we were doing the crowdfunding campaign, and you guys helped us out and came and watched episodes with us. That was a trip. I mean, even back then, that was 2018, I think, or maybe even 2017. So that was a long time ago now. And so, watching it last night, it's even further away, further in the rear view. No recollection of shooting those scenes.
Really?
I think that was the standout. I mean, there was a couple scenes that I definitely remembered, but for the most part, I was like, really, I'm glad that the episode had a recap at the beginning, because I really had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, the recaps are helpful. Okay, wait, I have a question, because we talk about this a lot on the show, that there are certain episodes where, similarly to what you just said, we're all going, we did what?
Huh?
I don't remember that.
No idea.
And then there's these scenes that you're not only going, oh, I remember filming that, but it's like you get like it's like a muscle memory. That feeling like in your core. Were there scenes from 418 that you felt that way about, or were you just surprised by the whole thing?
Yeah, there was one. It was I guess it was like the last scene for Nathan and Haley, where I think it kick off the coda, where Nathan is giving a little press conference at high school, and that scene I remember well. Yeah, everything leading up to it, like not a lot of don't really remember shooting that stuff, but for whatever reason I remember that scene, probably because it took some preparation. It was like a little bit of a monologue.
A little bit of a monologue. It was
Huge.
I mean, I don't know. I just remember being like, going into that day, feeling a little bit, and it's rare that this happened, feeling a little bit of what Nathan must have been feeling, being like, oh man, I really don't want this dream to be over for him. He's going to Duke. At that time, I was watching a lot of college basketball. I loved Duke. It was like so cool that Nathan was going to Duke, or that prospect was there. And I remember being like really impressed with what he was doing and owning up to it. It was cool to see sort of like shades of the adult that he might become. But at the same time, I remember just being like, oh, I hope he can get this opportunity back. So yeah, that one stood out as something that I definitely remembered.
I have no recollection of standing at your side shooting that scene. None whatsoever.
Do you think you were just standing there like writing a song in your head or something?
Honestly, probably. I just drifted off. It's one of the funniest things about doing this show is watching back and being like so surprised at the things that I remember and the things that I don't. Things that you think would be so monumental, and I have no recollection, and then others that I'm like, why? Well, that scene is such a nothing scene. Why do I still smell the sheets and the wallpaper? Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Well, widen out for a little bit. Like, what do you remember, James, of, the 9 years you spent on the show? What are some of the first episodes that float back for you?
Mm.
I think it was probably around this season. Seasons 1 through 3, for whatever reason, are really a blur for me. I don't know why.
Because you were a child. Your frontal lobe was still forming. Like, you were little.
I was still learning to catch the experiences and turn them into memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I mean, I think around season 4, I remember the final episode of season 4 really well, the state championship game and all that. That was really, really fun and kind of a monumental experience in my life to be able to play in NC State's gym. And, everyone was out there. We all traveled to go, stay out there for a couple days. And it was just a really, really awesome experience. And then after that, ironically, I guess once the characters made the jump into adulthood, maybe I was doing the same. And I just remember a lot more from those years.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember you started coming out more in town during those years. You turned 21 or you had a really good fake ID at that point. But all of a sudden, life was imitating art. We were all moving as a pack in town in a different way.
Yeah, 100%. I think I came out of my shell a little bit as time went on, and just got a little bit more comfortable in my own skin. It definitely helped to not have to. That was the thing about going out in Wilmington, is I couldn't really roll around with a fake ID because it was a small town and we were on One Tree Hill, so that was kind of pointless.
Right.
So I had to pick my spots from 18 to 21. I had to there's a few places that would let me in the back door.
Yeah, it's a small town. It's hard to get away with stuff.
Yeah. But then once I turned 21, I could go wherever you guys went. So
Freedom.
It was a lot easier. Yeah.
I wonder too, that sort of evolution that you were experiencing, going from being a literal teenager to an adult, as we all were doing that on the show. We were playing teens, but you literally started as a teen. I wonder about it. Because talking about how the first couple of seasons are a blur, we've spoken a lot. And I always wonder, I'm do they know? When we shower you or any of the other guys with compliments on the show, I'm does everyone just tweet our quotes at them? Do they have any idea? So just in case they don't, we've talked so much about watching Nathan's evolution, and especially you in this season begin having this deeper sort of stoic poignance to your performance. And I wonder, do you think it was because you said it? Do you think it was because Nathan is finding himself in a way where we're starting to foreshadow the man that he grows into? Or were the storylines just that poignant for you, thinking about this kid settling down and getting ready to be a dad? Was it a little life imitating art, or was it really just that you were getting so much good stuff off the page that it made it extra special for you as an actor?
Yeah, probably the latter there. I think I think around this season, if I remember correctly, there was things were getting pretty real for Nathan. There were the storylines where I'm about to get kneecapped by Rick Fox, which is a little out there.
Did you love that, James?
Dude, I was so stoked about that. I mean, it was Rick Fox. Come on, I grew up a Lakers fan. But and that stuff was great in itself, But I really gravitated towards, I think, being able to have those moments at the end of episode 418 where there's a tough decision to make, and you actually see Nathan making a good decision, and over time he's making more and more good decisions. And so, I took that seriously, and I thought it was great. And I think in a way I was, learning from it as well. Those lessons and things, but it just felt really good to be able to play that character, that made that evolution and see it come to fruition in those ways. It's sure, you want to see him go to Duke, but even at 21, I understood that the bigger thing here, the more important thing here was that he was doing the right thing. And so, that sunk in, that resonated with me.
There's something we've gotten this question, and all of us have answered it, and a lot of our guests have answered it, but we haven't had a chance to talk with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got started on this show, like what your audition process was like, and how this whole job came about for you?
Yeah. How much time do we have?
Yeah. Honey, all the time in the world.
Yeah. So I was like 17. I had done a few projects. I had done a couple pilots and things, I was a senior in high school, and I wasn't too stoked on continuing acting. I'd been doing it since I was like 6-7 years old, and I really loved it, but it's tough. There's a lot of rejection, and I wasn't an adult yet. I didn't really know how to deal with that rejection. I was just sort of tired of it by the time I was 17. And so, then one day this script came like through the pipeline or whatever. It was mailed to me by UPS or however it happened back then.
Right, paper mail.
When we used to get hard copies.
Back when it was called Ravens.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was called Ravens. And I remember reading it and just being like, all right, I got to like give this one a shot. This one's special. And just like, I just love basketball so much. And I have a brother, and I grew up in a small town. There was so much about it that resonated. So I went and read for Lucas. I didn't get Lucas. And then I went and read for Nathan, and I went through a series of auditions for Nathan. At a certain point in the audition process, it got through to me through like back channels that like I was too nice. I was not hard enough like to be this guy. But they liked me. And by the way, this is like me and my mom. Like my mom's with me in Los Angeles as I'm like auditioning for this thing. And I think it was actually my mom who was like, look, if you want this, you got to go to your acting coach. You got to take a session and like take this seriously. If you're going to do it, like do it right. So I went to my acting coach, and we worked it the night before the test. I think I tested like 5 times.
Jesus.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. It was like 5 different appointments over a few days. It was like.
Did you have chemistry tests with that, or was it just your?
It was just like me and one other actor like going into a room on the Warner Brothers lot and like just reading for the same 5 people like over and over again over the course of like 2 days.
Did they give you notes every time? It was like, go home and try it, like work on it this way and then come back and do it differently?
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever tested for anything 5 times. How does that work?
You know what? They were doing the asshole test. To see which kid was going to flake first. You didn't flake, Lafferty.
Is that why they do that? Is that honestly,
think about our job though. You got to do the same thing over and over again. There's a level of endurance that you have to have in television that you don't have to have in film. Like pushing someone to their breaking point.
You got to want it too.
Yeah, you wanted it.
I wonder if there was anything going on with those executives in the room who were like, we got to hire someone who's a really convincing asshole. Let's make sure in real life he's not a dick. Because if he is, it's going to be a nightmare. Like I feel like there's a little bit of that too. Like we're actively asking people to come in here and be awful. Season 1, episode 1, Nathan Scott. So maybe we should just keep bringing them in here and see if they're actually nice.
They hazed you, bro.
I feel like all those reasons are valid. Like now that you've mentioned all those reasons, I'm like, it's probably a good thing they brought me in 5 times just to make sure I could do the job.
Yeah.
So, but I think the last step to the process was Brian Robbins having me and this other actor go to his house and play him one-on-one in his backyard.
Wait, so the guy that you were up against?
Wow.
Yeah. Who was really awesome, really, really awesome, by the way. His name is Riley, and he's just like, he's older than me. And I think he was like, I don't know, he must have been like in his early 20s at the time, but he was just like, you couldn't ask for a better actor to be testing against when you're like a teenager. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was more of like us two just sort of like, it didn't feel like we were going after the same project. It just sort of felt like we were both there, just like in it sort of together. Which I thought was really cool. And he could ball for sure. And I was not playing very hard. And Brian Robbins, like, I think he scored a couple points on me. and he pulled me aside and he was like, if you want this job, you're going to have to play. And I was like, okay.
Oh.
And so I started playing, and it went better for me after that. And then it was just like, go home and wait to find out if he got the job.
Wow.
And yeah, the rest is history. So,
wow. So did you have any idea at that point, you've got to go work it to kind of get in the headspace, you've got to ball hard. Did you have any idea past who Nathan was in the pilot? Did they give you any inkling of who he would become, that he would have this sort of, generational fork in the road, and he could either become his dad or go the opposite way? Did you know he was going to get married in high school? Like, did they tell you anything, or was it all a surprise once the show got picked up?
I didn't really. Yeah, it was all kind of a surprise, to be honest. And I didn't think about it that much.
Wow.
Like, I don't remember being that concerned with it, because I was like, I was having so much fun playing this asshole of a kid. I was like, he makes a great villain. So if I got to be the villain, I was kind of fine with it. I wasn't thinking things through quite as much back then. Again, I was so young. I was just kind of stoked to be there. But I remember getting like, some assurances here and there that like, this is not who this character is. Like, this character isn't going to like end up dead in a ditch somewhere as he gets his comeuppance. There's like an evolution for this character. And just thinking like, cool, great.
Wow.
Great.
I mean, when we went out to shoot the pilot, you were still in school, and you were the only one of us that was still in school. And so I remember talking about like, what are you going to do for prom? What are you going to do for graduation? Because it was all like, it hadn't happened for you yet. And the rest of us were 20, 21, looking at it in the rear view mirror. And so it was great to have your energy there, because you were still pumped about that stuff.
Yeah.
God, did you just feel like you never left high school for, 15 years?
Still feels like that,
10,
to
I
be
guess.
honest. Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, no. I mean, I called and asked my prom date out from Wilmington, because I was like, I missed that time to like ask your prom date out. I was like, well, I gotta make some phone calls, man. But yeah, it was, I guess it was strange. But the thing about like the show was, we shot on a college campus, and like everyone was a little bit older, even like, background were a little bit older. Like, we weren't really surrounded by high school kids. So, and then when we're like shooting on a high school set, and the classroom scenes tripped me out a little bit. Like, I didn't like the classroom scenes because I didn't want to be in class, period.
I never liked those either.
But the rest of it was separated enough from reality that I didn't really feel like I was stuck in high school for too long. Yeah.
Do you remember the day when we got the red pages that Nathan and Haley were getting married?
I do remember that. I do, because I remember the red pages and being like, what the hell is going on? I've never seen red pages.
Well, our trailers were attached. So, because we were in so many scenes together, obviously, that whenever you, for those of you listening, they tend to put actors in, they're called a double banger. And it's one side is one actor and the other side is the other actor. And they will put you in with people that you usually work with a lot. Mm-hmm. So James and I had shared a double banger. And I remember like busting out of my trailer door, and you happened to be walking out too at this. And I just remember being like, did you see this? This is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah, very. And I remember.
Did you know it was coming?
No, I had no idea. It was coming. Again, I remember having like a delayed reaction. I think I remember being like, because, I feel like the makeup trailer is like the nerve center of the whole set, right? And so
totally.
It's like
headquarters.
I process, especially at the time, I didn't really process things as they happen. I sort of like learned to react to things based on how other people reacted to them.
Oh,
and so
James!
like I remember going into the makeup trailer and being like, oh, this is a big deal, I guess. Like, this is, whoa. All right.
Like, people are really freaking out.
They're worked up.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I guess that's why they're red pages.
But also, like, from a boy's point of view, you know, you've got this narrative of like high school romance. And for the girls, it's very romanticized. It's like Nathan sweeps her off her feet and says all the right things and all of that. Like, as a boy, you get a storyline where your teenage boy character now has to be married in high school. Like, what's your take on that? Did you know any married people in high school?
I don't know. No, I didn't. But I did grow up in a small town, and to me, it wasn't like, to me, it wouldn't have been that far removed. It wouldn't have been that crazy of a thing to do, because I knew plenty of people that got married like the year after high school was out, you know? I mean, it was still pretty wild. I think at the time, what our characters were our characters like sophomores or juniors or something? Or
Juniors,
Oh
right. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely,
can you imagine?
Extraordinary.
16 and married.
You guys, that's 3 years out from where my son is. Like, if
Wow.
God.
Whoa.
gross.
3. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from a modern perspective, I mean, the further and further away we get from it, I don't even know if that story would track today. You know, like, I don't even know how many people. It was pretty outrageous when it happened back then, but I think now it's just to be like, what, you know. But yeah, I mean, I just thought it was an exciting step, because I don't think I necessarily like knew that it was going to go well. You know, like I certainly didn't know that it was going to be, you know, the characters would be married throughout the duration of the show. And so like, feel like to me, it was just kind of like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. Like, I don't know if this is a cautionary tale or has a happy ending, you know, like,
you know what struck me watching you guys play those scenes in this episode today? And it is interesting. Like, we have such good hindsight now, right? You look back and you go, well, these were the things I weren't thinking about. And these are the questions I'd ask today. And oh my God, we were all a bunch of idiots. How did we survive? But I was watching you two do those scenes talking about the point shaving in your future and getting ready for a kid and all the things. And I think one of the things I realized as an adult who's had to, you know, do the work. We talk so much about therapy on this show, by the way. Like, as adults who've had to like go and do the work and learn things, and to learn to communicate really well, especially, you know, if you were raised in an environment where that wasn't modeled for you. One of the things I love watching Nathan and Haley do is communicate so well. What you guys modeled in terms of the way that you would share and be vulnerable and learn that there was safety in that vulnerability with your partner. I was like, God, they are better at this than a lot of people our age.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. Like, you guys got to go on this journey, and I think it's seeing that kind of communication and that love between two people that's probably why all the fans are so diehard, because it is inspiring.
Like, what's crazy about that though is that it's so easy to do on camera. Well, especially with an actor like you, James, or somebody that, you know, you feel really comfortable with, who's honest and good, and like, you know, you can connect with, and but it's so weird how it's so easy to do that on camera, and then in real life, when the stakes are actually high and real, and your emotions for real, your heart for real is on the line, just all the walls go up, everything shuts down. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Never practiced that before in my whole life.
Yeah. Suddenly you're like, words are
word salad
things for talking. They're just gone. Oh,
it does really help when you have someone else writing the right words for you in that situation. I think, like,
Wouldn't that be fun? Every time you have an argument with your partner, you're just like, can we call in our writer's room, please?
You're like,
just
pause,
like tie this
let's
up
go
for
in the
us.
room.
To that end, though, exactly. James, we've been doing this show, and we've said over and over again that this is our therapy. Like, doing this podcast and looking back at this chunk of time in our life has been our therapy. But you created your own content, which feels kind of therapeutic as an outside observer. The show that you and Steven created, like, tell our listeners about that. But also, I mean, I would love to know if it's been cathartic to kind of poke fun and analyze what our experience was through a creative process.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for the question. I mean, it's like the show's called Everyone is Doing Great, so really
Amazing.
I
excited
love
about
that show. I really genuinely love it. It's so good.
Thank you, Joy. Yeah, it's been a really fun road, and it's an independent television show. So we pull it together with our little filmmaker family, and our friends and loved ones are in it, and helping to make it happen. And we did the same thing the second season, but it's basically about three actors that were on like a Vampire Diaries type show, which was like a mega success. And then they come off the show, and it's like a late coming of age. It's like they were in this period of arrested development while they were on this show. They weren't really facing the real world. Mm-hmm. And then they come out of the show and they're in their 30s, and their life has not really turned out the way that they thought it was going to. And it's about them sort of dealing with those things in very, very different ways, but always being pulled back together by this like shared history. Like they're the only ones that know the experience that they went through on that show. And so those roots will always be there, and they'll always be like pulling them back together. It's really raw and supposed to be funny, supposed to make you laugh and feel good. At the same time, it's like very dry and awkward. And it's just meant to just poke fun at all those little moments in life that we might feel are horrifying at the time. But when you look back at it, it might just be a really funny story eventually. Right.
I mean, it is so funny.
Would you rip from real life? Like what was when you left One Tree Hill and you're like, that's it, I'm done, I'm starting this new chapter, but I gotta make fun of this in my new show.
Exactly.
Like what was your punchline? What was the thing you had to hit?
There was, I think it was mostly like for my character, it was I guess like an expectation that like life's just going to work out, and that you can wait for good things to come to you. That was something that that was a mindset that I had for a while coming out of the show. It was just like, I mean, it worked out for 9 years. Why isn't it going to work out for the next 9 years?
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? What's everybody so worried about? Yeah. 5 years later, you're like, okay, I am bored. Like, I'm really bored. We got to get something going here.
That's what you do so great on Everyone is Doing Great, which I loved, is that you take an experience that's so singular. There's very few people who have the experience that we all had growing up as teenagers and early 20s on a TV show that lasted for so long and impacted our young life in that way. But you made it relatable. So you're taking the same experience that seems so kind of bizarre that almost nobody has had this experience. But when you watch the show, you're still getting moments of lessons like what you're talking about in a really fun way, where everybody, no matter what career you're in, can relate to the idea of like, oh yeah, you just have to like, oh, it worked out here, so I guess I just wait. And then you're like, oh, I'm still waiting. Oh wait, I'm still waiting. Oh, you gotta take the bull by the horns and get out there.
No, thanks. That's exactly what we wanted people to. We wanted people to be able to grab onto it, and we wanted it to have, we wanted it to be relatable. We didn't want it to be Entourage. We wanted it to just be a story about like people, which is, whatever.
Yeah.
Because everybody's been asked to do things that are embarrassing. And I mean, oh my God, that scene where Steven has to do that audition, he has to like make out on the floor for an audition. Please tell me that was did that really happen?
Well, and those were the other things that inspired us to do it. Like there was like the broad sort of like meta stuff that was like, oh, this is like the emotional reason for doing this. But then there was just like the years and years of stories that we had from this industry and situations that we found ourselves in. And that was one of them that actually like, it didn't happen that way to Steven, but he had an experience that was similar in an audition. And it was just like the greatest story that we ever had. And we were like, how is this not on camera somewhere? How has somebody not already done this? Like we kind of, I feel like the show wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him having that experience.
Oh my
gosh. Oh, that's funny.
Are you so scared of our old audition tapes coming to light one day? Because I think about auditions like that where we would have to pretend there was a monster, or we would have.
Yeah.
Or pretend you had a gun.
Oh, God.
And like roll around on the floor like a Charlie's Angel. No.
Do you remember the horror film they did that all took place on the ski lift? And you had to sit in a chair in the audition and like pretend that wolves were trying to bite your feet? Because Daniil and I were in that audition together. Just like,
oh my God.
I feel like Coletti auditioned for that one too. But like that sense of absurdity someday's going to bite us in the ass, you guys. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I hope it happens to all of us at once so that at least it's like we can all laugh about it
That
together.
would be so
Proves
special.
how committed we are.
I think that's why the show and what you guys have done with it, it gives me that feeling of like, like when, I don't know how to verbalize that, but when you just go, oh God, and it feels funny, but also
you can
I don't
barf.
know, it's just so intense. Yes, exactly. Where you're like, what is happening to me? Because it is. There's so much about what we do that is ridiculous, and that's universal. And a friend of mine is a writer, and she wrote a really specific TV show, and she said the best advice she ever got from her mentor is that the unique is universal. And you guys have taken this very unique situation that very few people understand, and like the 9 years we all spent together, and then you've put this comedic lens on it. And like it does. I don't know why. It just feels so universal. Everybody I know who's watched the show is like, oh man, that one got me. Or did you see that episode? Like, whoo, that stressed me out. Like it's so funny. So hats off to you. It's really good.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we were going for. I think, I don't know. I mean, you all have creative ventures. Sometimes like you're inspired to go into something and you don't always know exactly what it is, but you just know that you're just compelled to do it. And I guess because it's like something's trying to come out of you. And by the time we got to the end of that first season, we had watched the episodes over and over and over again. You know, we were always really concerned by the fact that it was industry adjacent or whatever. And we didn't want it to feel too inside baseball. But I remember when the show was about to come out being like, I guess just realizing like, okay, we just made a show about life. Like we just made a show about starting over at the end of the day. And hopefully people will see that. So I'm really, thank you guys.
How many of those did you direct? Are you guys taking turns directing that, or are you on deck the whole time?
The first season, it was Steven and I directed most of the episodes, and then Steven directed one. And then this season, we really handed Steven's directing. One of our producers, Michelle Lang, is directing. Another producer, Johnny Durango, is directing. Took my hands off the wheel there because, you know, acting and directing at the same time is always a challenge. But with this, we do a lot of it. It's kind of improv based. We do the show based on like really detailed outlines. So we have a script, but it's not really in script format. And I think cool. that we try to just encourage actors to like, it's like you're reading the page of a novel and you're like, okay, here's all the information that I'm getting across. But really it's like, I got to see the story in my head and I got to tell the story the way that I would. So,
oh my God, James, that's like the perfect hybrid of Laguna Beach and One Tree Hill. You know what I mean? Because they would hand those kids outlines and be like, go, you know?
Yeah. No,
that's amazing.
Totally. I mean, you know, Steven, you know, we had that discussion while, you know, we were sort of like coming up with the format. And this is not a totally original format, you know, like there are other filmmakers that do this and do it really, really well. And we were inspired by them. But, you know, I remember Steven saying, you know, early on, like, this is like, not far off from what Laguna Beach was, you know, like, and
it's real.
And so, yeah. And actually our director of photography for the second season, Gareth Cox, he's a director of photography for this show called Siesta Key on MTV. Which
My
is like,
husband is obsessed with Siesta Key. Obsessed. I love it.
Yeah, that's the one, right? It's about, it's like basically Laguna Beach in the Florida Keys.
Dude.
Yeah.
JDM is a big fan of Siesta Key.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I love how much he loves trashy reality shows. Oh
God.
I love it so much.
Can you believe he's never watched ours? James, speaking of funny storylines, obviously we make a lot of fun of ourselves on this podcast, and your character has been through some wild adventures, whether you're doing shit with Chris Keller or you're getting beat up by Rick Fox. Like,
Or the Russian mafia.
Yeah, like what were the storylines for you that you look back on now as a grown-up and you're just like, oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, was there anything you ever went in and you were like, really? Like, is there any way we can change this?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple. You know, even some of the wilder stuff we did, you know, like the Rick Fox of it all, or like, you know, being, you know, held hostage by Serbian gangsters. Like there was always something fun to find in there. And honestly, it always tested me the most. Like I found it much easier to, you know, play, you know, an emotional scene with you, Joy, than I did, you know, having to get emotional in scenes like that, because I'd never done like an action movie. I'd never done a horror movie or anything like that. Like I never conjured up those emotions from a situation that, you know, is absurd on set, right?
Yeah.
And like your challenge is to really make that real. Like it's not hard to make something real with you, Joy, but it's hard to make something real, you know, with other situations. And so I always felt like, going into those, I was nervous, but at the same time, it was like, all right, how are we gonna do this? Like, how we like we got to make the audience believe this. And so, yeah.
Well, and for our friends at home, one of the things when you reference why some of that stuff can be hard, you know, to your point, if you guys are shooting a scene as Nathan and Haley, you're in close quarters, you're looking at each other, you get to react to what she's doing, she gets to react to what you're doing. One of the things people don't know about, you know, the Rick Fox storyline, for example, is they'll do the crash, but they only do the crash in the wide shots because there's one vehicle. And so you'll be on camera and you're close up and they'll be like, someone's running by with a tennis ball on a C-stand for your eye line. And then they go, and boom. And you're supposed to react like you're watching your wife get hit by a car, but there's nothing happening. And it's so insane. So the challenge to create realism, you know.
How big is your imagination?
It's wild.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, I feel like. And then, you know, like to use that as an example, you have the crash, which you're supposed to react to, and then they go around and they cover every single actor who's there reacting to it, and then 2 hours later, you're still reacting to the crash that happened, you know, earlier in the day or whatever. It could be 6 hours later, and you're like, I'm still supposed to be worked up,
or you have no idea what the crash is going to look like. They just sort of give you an idea of it, but then you see the stunt that they do later, and you're like, I would have had a way bigger reaction, or a way less, you know, I would have had a way smaller reaction.
Always great when they shoot the action last.
God.
So they're like, okay, react to the thing that's going to happen, and you're like, but I haven't seen it yet. You just have to make it up.
James, we solicited for questions for this episode, and we solicit for questions for all of our guests. We've never had an avalanche like this before. So we are going to do some rapid fire fan questions.
Oh, boy.
Good idea.
Yeah, let's feel like you can just blow through them. But I want to start. I peruse these. I have a question that I need to ask.
Okay.
Listen, you always had strong little brother energy for me because I met you as like a child. But Marissa, would love to know about your thoughts on your hair in season 4. Because when you showed up with long hair, that was the first time I was like, oh my God, James is like hot. James is like dangerous.
Yeah, excellent hair.
Dangerous, Lafferty.
I have a note here. Hair question mark?
What?
No question mark. No question mark. Hair exclamation point.
Yeah. Loved it.
Wait, is that what we're calling this episode? Hair exclamation point?
Yeah. It was like suddenly, I don't know what that was. You know what I think it was? I think they were growing my hair. I was growing my hair out in anticipation for season 5.
Yeah.
When they were going to flash back and forth between when I had like, what was it? They needed to show, that there was like a difference in the timelines. And so, and I was like, I had really long hair because I had I was like in a wheelchair and I was not taking care of myself. And so, they decided that it was going to be easier. Oh God, they didn't want to wig me because a wig would look fake. So they needed me to grow my hair out long enough so that they could attach extensions to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way they could go back and forth between.
Is that what they did in season 5? You had extensions?
Yeah, I had extensions, and then they cut my hair, my actual head hair, into tiny little pieces, and they put it in a little tray with some glue on it, and then they took a paintbrush and then they painted the glue hair on my face. That's how I had that big beard.
It was awesome.
It's so insane.
That's so I was like there like 3 hours early every day.
Wow.
And they have the extensions and then get that glue on the face. And
why didn't you just grow? Oh, because they had to go back and forth, so they couldn't.
Yeah, and I also couldn't grow a beard.
Oh, you couldn't?
Nah, I mean I could maybe grow it wouldn't have been a fun beard to see on TV for sure.
That's so funny.
It was a hit.
Okay, if you could have chosen to direct the pilot or the finale, which one?
The pilot, I guess. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the pilot because I don't know. I just
It's okay. It's rapid fire. You don't have to explain yourself.
Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry, lightning round.
Knocking them out.
Pilot.
Were there any storylines that the writers pitched to you for Nathan that then didn't wind up happening that you wished you'd gotten to film?
No, I don't think so. There was talk of Nathan making it to the NBA, but I don't think the NBA would really let us do what we needed to do to make that storyline happen. That would have been cool, but it didn't happen. So I guess maybe that counts.
Yeah.
Did you keep anything from set?
I kept the signature sneakers that Nathan had at the beginning of season 5 when it was all good and he got his contract and his shoe deal and stuff. So I kept those.
What
awesome.
other character besides Nathan would you want to play?
Whitey.
Aww.
I was watching the episode last night. I was like, God, I love this guy. I love Barry and I love Whitey.
Did you ever go drinking with Whitey?
I did, yeah, a couple of times. We didn't run in the same circles, but I definitely saw him out, you know, and would have a beer with him for sure.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, that's a perfect segue into Will's question. Whitey was an important coach and figure in Nathan's life. Who has been a similar coach or figure in your life?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, I guess my acting coach, Andrew McGarrian, was a big, influence on me, and especially as a young person in this industry, just taught me a lot of foundational stuff about, acting, but also about how to be a professional. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, he nailed that. Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
James, everyone in our industry working at the age that we were working at f***ed up in one way or another, and you are one of the few unicorns that never f***ed up. You never f***ed up.
No, that's not true. I mean, I was young, I was certainly not perfect, but I definitely had,
You always had a good head on your shoulders.
Yeah, good family. I've been really, really fortunate in life. So I think that helped. And, people like Andrew helped. And there was good influences on the show as well. I'll never forget Craig Sheffer telling me to save my money. That stuck with me. It really did. And he had a great explanation for it. And he didn't tell me in a condescending way or in a way that, made me feel like I didn't know anything. He was genuinely trying to help me. And at the time he probably thought this kid's never going to hear a word I'm saying, but I heard it loud and clear. So
getting that advice from Craig, from this perspective that you're in today, we have a last, kind of maybe a perfect last fan question, is what advice would you give Nathan today about life?
Oh man, I feel like I should be getting advice from Nathan, not giving it to him.
Or give advice to a young version of yourself, even. That works too.
Right. It's anything I could say to Nathan, I feel like he already kind of knew, but I feel like I would say, or maybe remind him or remind anyone that anything worth doing is going to probably be pretty hard and it's going to take a lot of time and dedication. But you can definitely do it. And just try not to lose yourself along the way, no matter how hard it gets and no matter how I guess how much it feels like you're not going to get there sometimes. Just try to be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and you'll get there. Like it'll happen, and it might happen in a way that you don't expect, but it's going to happen.
Well, James, that's like the perfect sentiment for this episode. Hey, listen, we're so excited that we have you because everyone's been asking for you for like years now.
Yes.
We just watched 418. Would you stay and do a recap episode of 418 with us?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's rock it out.
All right, kids. We'll see you next week with 418.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Don't forget to leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at DramaQueensOTH.
Or email us at dramaqueens@iheartradio.com. See you next time.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.